Francis and Jonathan Drake House. As you know, the Historic Society, along with the city and the commission, and all of you helped to purchase the property and preserve it. So that's our main mission, was to get the property, right, Mark? I mean, was major focus was step one, get the property, and two, then to begin to talk about restoration. Now, last year, for those of you who are here, we had a visit with the Center for Technical Education. We got real excited about the project because of all the history and the fact that it's here in Leominster, and the fact that this is what they do as part of the Center for Technical Education program. So, but beyond that, we looked at the building, and there are so many things that we'd like to use it for. We started to think about, well, what do we do with this building now that we have it? Where do we start? So the obvious next step was we need a plan. And so we're talking about our resources and obtaining, local resources, maybe getting somebody to help us with a plan, because we need to have this building handicap accessible. There are a couple different barriers in here, and everything that we do, we want to make sure it fits in with the historic integrity of the building. So our grant became available through the state, and Wendy got out her pen and started writing away with the assistance, Mark Bonanza from the Historic Society, the Historic Commission, and many of you. And so we were notified that we got a $30,000 grant to help with the planning of this. So that will allow us to sort of work with those people in the planning part of this all. And we're actually going to have a set of documents that will give us a blueprint and a roadmap to restoring this building and doing it right, so that we're not sort of doing it on our weekend practices here in terms of thinking about, well, let's collaborate and see what the best thing to do is. We're going to have somebody here that's certified, that's trained, that knows how to do this, and will prepare us for future grants with the state. And that's also important too. It is a historic building. I think most of you know something about the building or remember something about it. Mark is probably the person that remembers and has written and talked about it the most, which has sort of brought it to life. And so we have we have a historic district in downtown Leominster, which is actually expanding now as a result of the Drake House. Mark, did you want to?
Yeah, it's ironic. Last night I was writing. I'm writing a book about Francis Drake now. Right. It's about 3/4 of the way finished. And last night I was writing about the climactic event that occurred at this property. Ironically, on February 15th of 1851, there was a big thaw, and it had been raining all day. It was a Saturday, and there was a anti-slavery fair here in Leominster being held, and there was a surprise guest, Wendell Phillips, one of the greats, an attorney who became an ardent abolitionist in Boston, and James Buffum and Judge Thomas Russell, also famous abolitionist. Judge Russell is the man who harbored John Brown after he left Kansas. So these were notable figures. So picture that this was going on here in Leominster. Francis Drake was a little upset that the fair wasn't very well attended because of the weather. And at the same time,
kind of like yesterday.
Yeah, at the very same time that this was happening here, unbeknownst to those players and Mrs. Drake, there was a arrest of a fugitive slave in Boston by the name of Shadrach Minkins. And Minkins' arrest was very notable because the authorities in Boston, the federal authorities, had failed twice in attempting to capture a fugitive and process the fugitive under the new fugitive slave law, which was supposed to, according to Daniel Webster and Henry Clay, bind the nation together. So this one they had to get right. So they had Shadrach Minkins in custody on Saturday the 15th. They arrested him he was a waiter at a coffee house in Boston. They arrested him and brought him to the courthouse. And after the recess, they adjourned the case to the following Tuesday. 20 black men stormed the courthouse, broke down the doors, overcame the federal marshals, and took Mr. Minkins out of the courthouse. Through the streets of Boston to the home of Lovejoy, a editor of a magazine in Boston, whose brother had been murdered in Alton, Illinois, because he was a newspaper editor, and ultimately to Concord, and ultimately to this property. Wow. So this was a test case for the whole nation. They wanted to see whether they could make the fugitive slave law work, the new law that Daniel Webster and Henry Clay fought so hard for, that most New Englanders were opposed to, but others in the nation